Alright guys, so today I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace the front calipers on your cars. This will work on cars, trucks, and SUVs. It's going to be the same procedure no matter what. I'm going to show you guys how to take off the calipers, put on your new ones, and bleed your brakes. Let's get started, guys. Alright, so the first bolt that we need to take out here is on this side right here, up top. And then also down here on the bottom, what holds your caliper on. So before I do that, I'm going to break this brake line loose right here. As you can see there, I'm just going to go ahead and get it broke loose. I'm not going to take it out all the way yet. And before I do that, I'm going to put a hose clamp on this hose, and that'll keep extra air from coming up inside of there. Alright, so I got the socket that I need. It's going to be a 17mm deep socket. Probably works the best just for reach, but if you have to, you can just put an extension on it. So I've got my ratchet here and stick it right on here. Now, this is kind of a hard area to work in, so unless you have a lift or something that you can get this up in the air and actually work from underneath it, it can make it a little bit more difficult. So I've done these a lot, and I'll tell you, one of my favorite tools to use is this little hammer right here. It's a little sledgehammer, and what we're going to do is just tap on the end of this right here, pushing it down, and that'll actually help break the bolts loose, because I can't get a cheater pipe in here, and I don't have a lot of room to crawl under here and push down on it. So you just give your ratchet or a breaker bar that you can fit in here a few taps with this, and it'll help break it loose. Alright, now that we've got that one loose, we'll go to the bottom side and do the same thing. Now before I take these bolts out all the way, I'm going to take this bolt out of the back that the brake line connects to. I'm going to go ahead and break that loose without taking it out yet, but just getting it loose. That way I won't have to fight with it once I take the caliper off. So I'm going to get out my hose clamp. We'll put it on here. We'll tighten this down, and that'll keep the extra air from coming up inside and extra fluid leaking out. Alright, now here's what I'm talking about. This is just a little hose clamp that swings around so you can get your hose into it, and then you swing this bottom around, tighten it up or loosen it. They sell these in a package at Harbor Freight. You get like 4 or 5 of them, I believe, in different sizes, so there's bigger ones. You can use these on your brake lines, gas lines, air hoses. They even make big ones where you can actually do your coolant hoses with them. These won't hurt your lines any. Again, we're just going to put it on here to help keep extra air from coming into it, so it'll make it easier to bleed these later, and we won't lose any extra fluid because of it either. Alright, now we got that clamp on there. As you can see, very simple. Now we'll go ahead and break that nut loose. All right, now that I got that on there, let's see if I can move this camera just a little bit here for you guys. All right, so now I got this on here. So again, I can either use the hammer, or a lot of times with these, you don't over tighten these when you put them on. You're just trying to keep a connection to keep fluid from coming out, because that would be bad. You wouldn't have any brake pressure to stop. So a lot of times you can just use the bottom of your fist here, and you can pound down on this and they'll come loose right away. Now, even with this hose clamp on here, we're still going to lose a little bit of fluid for what's left in the line right here, but it's not going to create a siphon on it. And also there's brake fluid obviously inside of the caliper itself, so you are still going to spill some, so keep that in mind. As you can see there, that what's coming out, that's coming out of the caliper itself. So if you're doing this in a driveway or something, just get some cardboard or a towel you don't care about, throw that under there, and that'll help soak up that oil, and you won't get it on your driveway or in your yard. So now we'll finish taking out these bolts by hand. They should be able to just twist out. Alright, and just like that, we got the caliper off. Now we're going to pop out the brakes that are in there, because I just put new brakes in this and then the caliper went out. So I'll go get the new caliper real quick. We'll take the brakes out, put it in that one, put it on here, reinstall everything. Alright, now I've got the brake pads put in the new caliper. Should just slide right on into place. And we'll start with the top bolt and just get it started. Find the hole. Sometimes you have to kind of shake this back and forth, and that'll allow the bolt to kind of screw in a little bit. Now once you get the top one started, you still want to have your play here. So we'll take the next bolt, stick it down in the bottom. That way we can adjust this back and forth. You don't want to tighten that one up, and then you'll be too far one way and not enough the other, or the complete opposite. And you know, you want to have some movement in there so you can get this next bolt in. Once you get the bottom bolt in, go ahead and start to snug it up. Come back, snug up the next one. Then after that, then you can go ahead and tighten them, because we want to make sure that everything is set completely right when you put these calipers on. Alright, the bottom one usually goes in a little bit easier than the top one. Sometimes. I've had heck sometimes trying to get the bottom one in, but this one seemed pretty easy. So now, just kind of tighten this one up a little bit more, get it in a little farther, because it was still pretty loose. make sure you get them on there good and snug, but not too tight to mess with the threads, you know, and strip them out. You want to make sure that you get them good and tight, but don't over tighten them. So now that part's done, now we'll start by putting this little guy back on, and this is the fun part. It's going to come with 2 new washers. Do not reuse the old washers. Put the new washers on. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a second. Alright, so here are the 2 brand new copper washers. Make sure that all the debris and anything, like, you know, if you set this bolt down, and it'll be the bolt that has the hole in it, you'll see that going through there. Make sure that you clean all the threads off. Make sure there's no debris. You know, if you set it down on the ground or it gets, you know, any type of little rock chips or grass or just dirt, make sure you clean that off. Take one of these, go ahead and slide it on. The first bolt right there. And then we'll take this one, slide it through there. We'll put this back on the front side, and we will make sure that this gets lined back up with the little notch. Let's see if I can move the camera here. The little notch right here that keeps us in place. All right, now I'll grab a socket, we'll put it on there, and we'll finish tightening this up. Again, don't over tighten them and strip out the bolts. You just want them good and snug. Make sure that no pressure from the lines is going to leak out, aka brake fluid. You don't want that to leak out. That would be bad. So again, don't over tighten them, don't strip them out. Just get them good and snug. That's all you have to do. Alright, so this one here is a 14 millimeter. Alright, that's good and snug. Now I can take this little clamp back off. Alright, now that's done. Now I'm going to do the other side, and then we are going to bleed the brakes. Alright guys, now it's time to bleed the brakes. So you can usually just use things you have laying around the house. First thing you're going to need is a bottle. Now you don't have to use a bottle like this, like I'm using here. It's already got brake fluid in it because I've already done the other side. You can take just something as simple as an oil jug, cut a hole in the top, take your hose, and run it down inside. Now what I did is I went down to Lowe's, and I got some plastic tubing here, and a little rubber hose that slid over the end of it here. And then I can take that, I've got my hole cut in the top, stick that down inside of there, connect this side to your bleeder screw. Then you get inside and you start to pump your brakes. Now before you do that, make sure that you pop your hood, take the cap off the top of your brake fluid reservoir. You're also going to need brake fluid. Make sure that you have brake fluid also before you do this job, because you're going to start to bleed your brakes, and before you know it, your reservoir is going to be completely empty if you're not careful. So again, any type of little bottle will work. You're going to need a hose. Now, one of the things I did to make sure that it was going to fit properly, because this was a little bit small, is I took my lighter, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, and I heated up the end of it. Got it nice and warm to the point where it was basically starting to melt, but just kind of before then, and then take it and slide it off, and it'll form fit to the end of that bleeder screw. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to install it, I'm going to take the cap off the top of the reservoir, and I'm going to start bleeding the brakes. Alright, now the first step, we have to remove the little protective cap. Keep the little protective cap in a safe place, because you're going to need that to put back on. Make sure you put that back on. That helps keep debris from getting inside there. Now on this particular one, it is a 10mm wrench. We'll just put this on. And what I do is I'll just leave it actually on there. Make sure you can get it broke loose. Just keep it on there snug. Now we'll take this, pop it in place, and whenever I start pumping the brakes, you guys will see the brake fluid start to flow through here. You'll see little bubbles and stuff, and we want to get all the air out of the line and make sure we have a steady stream of brake fluid going through. Again, the bottle is obviously to catch all of that oil, and it helps keep it primed. That way it's not sucking air back inside of it. So whenever you do this, you have to start the engine. That way your brake system is working properly, and even it can make the prime and power to push the brake fluid through. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that. I'm going to pump it a couple times. Then I'm going to come out. I'm going to break this loose. You don't have to take it all the way loose, just enough that brake fluid starts to flow through it. Then I'm going to sit there and I'm going to pump it real slow, about 5 times. And then I'm going to hold the brake pedal down all the way. Wait a few seconds, do it again. And you're going to do it about, roughly 5 sets of 5. And then after that, then start pumping it really fast. Then hold it back down real hard, and then tighten this back up. And we should have all the air out of the system by then and have the new caliper primed. Alright, so I went ahead and muted the audio because I turned the car on, so a little hard to talk and everything. But you can see the brake fluid going through the line. It's a little bit hard to see, but if you look real close, you'll notice the air bubbles moving through it, and you'll see the gold color. That would be the brake fluid. You want to make sure that you get a solid line of brake fluid, and that there is no more air bubbles coming through there, because if you get air inside of there, it creates soft pedals, and if you have a soft pedal, you're not getting the right pressure you need to stop your car. So that's why it's important to make sure that you bleed all the air out of your brake lines. Now this one has disc brakes only in the front. I'm not really worried about the back brakes because of the way this system is set up. A lot of newer vehicles have all-wheel disc brakes, and when you bleed one caliper, you have to go back and bleed all 4 of them. You have to do the entire system. In this particular instance, like I said, you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to continue to pump the brakes here, get all the air out of the lines,